Alright, so you're welcome. My name is Mensa, and I'm going to take your time for the next 40 minutes as we walk through the history of the castle, through the dungeons that we have right here. This place is basically Elmina Castle, or St. George's Castle. At the time, it was built in 1482, but before the castle was built in 1482, we're looking at the earlier coming of the Europeans. Probably we're talking about the Portuguese. They happened to be here in 1471. At the time when they were here, they were using their shape as a lodging place. When looking at the aspect of interacting and also trading with the natives at that time. And as a result of the trading, we're talking about the exchange of gold, ivory, spices, and other items. But the exchange of gold at the time of it was so high. Probably we're talking about the alluvial gold. And as a result of it, the Portuguese named this place to be Elmina. Elmina simply means the mine. But we're looking at the mispronunciation of the Elmina. Now we're talking about Elmina. And that has been the name of the town for now. But this shouldn't tell us that at the time of the Europeans, this place has no name. It has a name. The name is Anumansan. Anumansan happens to be a native dialect. That simply means Unuma and San, inexhaustible water, which is related with the history of the name to be the lagoon that we have right here across the bridge right there. So at the time of it, the castle was built purposely to trade and then also to spread Christianity. And as a result of the trading at the time, all the room that is now used as a dungeon at the time of it was used as a warehouse. But later, in 1600, they shifted their attention to human trade or slave trade. And as a result of the slave trade, the warehouses here were now converted to be a slave dungeon, where they started with 1,000 slaves, 600 men, 400 women. But do not forget, the number of it increased afterwards, and then more or less, the 1,000 being started with, kids were found right in there at the time of it, not even counted that of the adult. And in so doing, we can even justify that the 1,000 being started with was even more than that. Out of it, the 600 men, the 400 women. The 400 women were divided to be held right in the room that we have right here, including this place. And that of the 600 men were held at the other side of the castle. We'll be going there very soon. But before that, whilst the Portuguese were doing the slavery here, we're looking at the coming in of other Europeans. The Dutch, the Germans, the Swedish, and more. But the Dutch were the second Europeans who also settled in a place called Mori. Mori is about 20 kilometers heading towards Greater Accra. So the Dutch settled over there and built a fort called Fort Nassau to trade. But through traveling was when they also came in here. And as a result of the circumstances right in here, the Dutch were the people who fought against Portuguese here with the mindset of taking over the castle from them. So they tried twice to take over the castle, but they could not defeat the Portuguese here. But successfully, they were being helped by the natives in 1637 to fight against the Portuguese right in here. With the mindset of the native helping the Dutch, they will be the good people to stop the slave trade. So, helping them, the Dutch took over the castle from the Portuguese in 1637. And when they took over the place, it was the mindset of the native that since they helped them, they've gotten their savior. No more human trade. But not knowing, it happens to be a big deception. When the Dutch took over the castle, they happened to be the worst aspect of it. To fortify the castle, the Dutch now built more forts inland for soldiers to be right there to protect the castle. Then they did the slave trade right here for a long time, until 1860 to 1870. There was a stopping of the slave trade. So when that happened, the Dutch now realized the castle here has no use to them. And through that, they also sold this place to the English or the British in 1872. So when the British took over the castle, because there was no more slave trade, they used this place here to be the administrative aspect. But looking at the point of colonization of the country. But this shouldn't tell us that the British were not involved when we're talking about the history of the slave trade. They were involved. They built that of the Cape Coast Castle and also did slave trade in other forts purposely at that time. But when they were here, it was over. On the 6th of March, 1957 was when we Ghanaians also got independent. So Ghana getting independent, the British were now asked to leave the place. So if you look at the whole scenario, Portuguese were the first to be here. They spent 155 years The Dutch, also being the second, spent 235 years. And the British were here, spent 85 years when we're talking about the administrative aspect. But when we Ghanaians took over the castle, recently 6th of March 2022 happens to be our 65 years. But as we talk now, looking at the castle, it happens to be 540 years. We're still counting it. 1979 was when UNESCO took this place with the partnership of government of Ghana, Elmina Castle, and another Cape Coast Castle to be the place where we can visit. So this is why we are here. Now, this happens to be a short summary of the castle. So for now, I'm going to go with you along, walk through the dungeons, then look at the condition that they went through whilst we were held in here for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and beyond. So if you are ready, you take a walk with me, then we have a look at the dungeons, please. This what we have right here, this one. This happens to be the original metal bar at that time. That was used for the windows and that of the gate aspect. But because this one is no more in a good shape, we have the woody ones right here. These are the woody ones to place it. But with those watching outside, we're going to give ourselves a question that I'm putting to you now to get an answer. My question to you is, we are looking at the aspect of the 21st century when you're talking about the sea breeze, looking at metal getting rusted. So this happened to be the size or the thickness of it now. So my question to you is, what could be or what was the size of it at the time that it was brought in from the 14th to the 16th century? Now, as we walk through the other aspect of the dungeons, this side here happens to be the largest aspect for the intake under the division of the 400 women. At the point in time, we're talking about 150 people who were held in here at that time. And also, you can do recall that this said that talking about the 1,000 being started with, the kids were not even counted right in here. And as a result of it, the 150 people held in here were even more than that. Now, situation at the time of it, historically, we're looking at the point of the gates that we have right here. All the gates that we have right here at that time was being gated with metal bar. So with the exception of ventilation coming from this gate, the other way around for ventilation to be in here is from the small hole that we have over there. But with that side, it leads to a place where the European soldiers were keeping their weapons. Weapons could be the guns, the gunpowder, and other items. But the amazing thing is that without of the gunpowder, it happened to be toxic or poisoned. So when there's a leakage of it, the scent of it comes from that side to this place. And this is what we have the ladies held in here. Not only that, we're also looking at the aspect of human nature. When we're talking about urinating, vomiting, feces. Amazing thing is that without of the ladies, we're looking at the periodical aspect of it. When it comes to the menstrual basis every month, all this menstruation was happening right in here whilst we're here. And amazing thing is that that happens to be the point that they'll be sleeping and then eating. And unfortunately of it, the floor that we're seeing right here happens to be the original floor that they slept on. And as a result of it, at a time, looking at the situation of outbreak of diseases and other aspects of it, and through that, some of them lost their lives before the ship will even arrive. So we do say that those who died should rest in perfect peace. Let's take a walk and have a look at the other side of it. Now, what we have here, or what we're seeing right there, this is water. It happens to be rainwater at the time of it. Now, what we're seeing here happens to be the source of water that was used for cooking, washing, and drinking. But do not forget, at that time of it, it happens to be a clean water. But because it's no more in use, we have it this way. Now, with the exception of this water used for cooking, washing, and drinking, it was also used to wash the ladies who were being selected by the governors when we're looking at the aspect of abusing them sexually. And through the selection, up there is where the governor stands when it comes to the pointing or the selecting of the ladies. So after being selected, The water here were now fresh to wash them before they were taken up to the governor's bedroom. Let's have a look at this side, please. Now, this side, this happens to be the secret door, the trap door, where those selected ladies by the governor were taken up to the governor's bedroom after being washed. Now, unfortunately, the aspect of it, some of the ladies got pregnant. So those who got pregnant, they had a place where they were being held until they deliver. And after delivering, they have some specific years that they do separate the kids from the mothers. Held the kids in the castle to be trained when looking at the point of education at that time. The mothers were sent back to the dungeon to be sold out. So those kids are the mixed race kids. Probably we're talking about the mulattoes. So this happens to be the point where looking at the point of the Europeans wiping away the African culture in replacement of the European culture in the country of Ghana. Precisely, we're looking at the coastal areas of Ghana as a whole. And what we have here, the metal board that we have here, the cannonball, this was used to punish the ladies, those who refused to go to the governor's bedroom, when we're looking at the abusing aspect of it. And as a result of it, at that time, there was a chain on top of it that was used to chain wherever it is fit to be chained. It could be the hand, the neck, or the leg. What we're seeing here is very heavy, and as a result of it, you cannot go anywhere. And amazingly, we're looking at the aspect of nature. If it doesn't rain, it will be shining. So if it is raining or shining, you have to rush in here to the punishment will be over. And the amazing thing is that there was another form of punishment that was made right here when we're talking about language barrier. The point is that the capturing of the captives, we're looking at the aspect of the capturing going beyond the borders of this country. It could be Togo, it could be Benin, it could be anywhere, all held in here at the same time. And amazingly, we're looking at Ghana to be ethnic group or tribe, so all held in here at the same time. Communication was an issue of it. So the soldiers at the time were punishing them right in here to serve as a lesson for those in there, that anytime you're being selected, you need to respond to the selection. And through the punishment, some do go unconscious and lose their lives here. So when we are talking about the history of the slave trade, a lot of people died than those who survived. So we still keep on saying that those who died should rest in perfect. Right, so this side, the entrance that we're seeing right here, it happens to be the entrance that is meant for the ladies who are held in there being bought by the merchants to walk down to the ship. And at the time of going down, there were some steps right in here. But as we talk now, the steps is no more. So for now, we'll be going to use where they held the men, that will see the door or the gate of no return. Let's come in. As I said earlier, this side was where the ladies were coming down. And at that time, there were some steps right in here. But as we talk now, the steps is no more. So we have the drainage right here to replace it. So the ladies coming from this side, behind was where the men also came through. They were all chained whilst they went through the side. We'll be going there very soon. But before we see the door of no return, as we walk through the history of the castle, this place happens to be the effective or the saddest part of the history of the slave trade. The reason being is that the capture of the slaves, we're looking at the aspect of some of the soldiers who were setting fire in some of the houses at the gunpoint. So those who came out were being captured. So with this form of capture, we're talking about families, friends, and all sorts of people captured, brought in here. And when they were here, they were being separated. The women this side, the men the other way around. And as a result of taking them to a new world, this place happens really opportunity. If there were families within, could see themselves in here for the last time before they were taken to a new world. The reason being is that on board of the ship, they also had a different place for the men and that of the women. When looking at the aspect of abusing the ladies sexually. And through that, the point of seeing your wife, your kids, or your friend, we're looking at the psychological aspect. When we're looking at the situation, what is going to happen to them, and the other way around. And as a result of it, at the time, there was a high rate of committing of suicide through the history of the slave trade. So you walk with me, we see the door of no return from this side. Right, so that is the door or the gate of no return. So at a point in time, the sea that we've seen over there, it happened to be closer to the castle, but by nature it has receded. So there was the usage of the small boat to be carrying the slaves to the big ship. Now at the time of it, we're looking at the aspect of the merchants who were buying the slaves, were branding the slaves with hot metal on the chest as a source of identification. And as a result of it, some also do go unconscious and lose their lives because of the shock aspect of the branding. And then more or less, we're looking at the point of the soldiers, and then also that is the aspect of the merchant buying a slave. They were giving more than one. They had a perception that by the time they will get a new world, some will die, some will survive. And as a result of it, they were giving more than the number required. But with the situation here, it makes the ship overloaded. So on their way going, if there were any shortage of food or anything happening to the ship, quickly, some of them, or especially that of the weak ones, were thrown into the sea for them to move on. And the other aspect is, the slaves taken to the new world were being chained. It could be the hand, the neck, or the leg. So on their way going, the more they are stormed, the more the ship capsizes. And the more the ship capsizes, the more there is a twist of the metal chain on the hand, the neck, or the leg. Do not forget, this is a skin. It is so soft that anything twisted in a metal form, there will be an issue of it. And amazingly, we forget about the sea breeze when it comes to metal getting rusted. So this rusted metal on the hand, whilst at the same time it gets twisted. And more or less, we're also looking at the infection aspect of this rusted metal. And through that, talking about the history of the slave trade, a lot of people died than those who survived. So there's the reason why we have the flowers, the schnapps, and other valuable items that is brought in by the diaspora as a form of remembering those who died. But still saying, those who died should rest in perfect peace. It's quite unfortunate that we walk through the dungeons of the place. Right in the dungeons, we also have a prison. So the question that I do put to you is, what was the situation of the dungeons and that of the prison? The answer is yet to be known very soon. The point is that where we have imitation of the skull and that of the crossbones right there, it happened to be a prison. So the exception of it being a prison, all the rooms that we have down here was where the 600 men were divided to be held in. An amazing thing is that the side by side of the castle being a place where the men were being held. When we talk about the history of the slave trade, we had the church right in the middle at the time of it. When the Portuguese were here, they happened to be Catholic. And when the Dutch took over the place, they were Protestants who were protesting against the church. So they used the church of the Portuguese to be their slave market, where they were auctioning the slaves right in there. Now what we have right here, this is written in Old Dutch language. It is written in a memory of a governor who died and was buried right here. So this happens to be a graveyard. The name of the governor is Tet. Now this man Tet happens to be the last director general of the West Indies Company. And then he came from Zealand. Currently we are talking about Zealand to be part of Holland or Netherlands. So what happened is that this man Tet happens to be the man who was taking care over the north and south coast of Africa. He first arrived here, that was on 16th of January 1758, and died on 12th March the same year 1758, at the time that he happens to be 41 years old. So when he died here, there was a pastor here. His name is Andresen. So he wrote a tribute about Tet to be a good man and then God-fearing at the time of human trade. Let's see the prisons. Now this side, it happens to be a prison for the European soldiers. So a prison being for the European soldiers, the question to be asked, how possible were the Europeans also being punished here? Now, we're looking at the aspect of them going beyond the reach of the castle, or more or less being dragged one beyond. And in so doing, anybody who was found culprit was brought in here to be punished. But the amazing thing is that here, the punishment being over, they were released. Let's go to the next one. So this side, it happens to be the condemned aspect of the prison. So in here, we're looking at the situation of the captives that we call them the freedom fighters who were fighting for their freedom to get out. Probably we're talking about those who rebelled. So the leaders among them were being captured, brought in here to be killed. Held in here, situation at hand, no food, no water, starvation to death. And the amazing thing is that nobody came out from this place alive. And the point is that by nature of law, we all cannot die at the same time. So if by chance one person is dead, those who are not dead will be looking at the dead colleague waiting for their time to die. And then because those right in here were all struggling to survive, we can see some of the scratchy hands right on the walls in there for those who were struggling to survive. Right, so the two buildings that we have out there, the two buildings that we have on top there, that happens to be the watchtower for the soldiers, for the protection of the castle. By the time when the British were here, the watchtower was now converted to be a prison where they imprisoned some of the great kings of Ashanti. We're talking about King Prempeh I and that of Yasantua. They were held in there, but later they exiled them to Seychelles Island. Seychelles Island is somewhere near Madagascar in the Indian Ocean. Right, so this side, it happens to be the boardroom or the conference room for the governor. If there were any discussion, this is where they do it. But as we talk now, it's a place for exhibition of paintings. So now let's see the governor's bedroom from this side. So that is the governor's bedroom, the sleeping room for the governor. Now, the floor that we see, that's the wooden aspect. There has been a restoration of it. So we have the bedroom, then we have the living room or the sitting room at the other side of the place. Let's see from this side. So you can do imagination for one person how spacious his environment is. The bedroom, this side, it happens to be the living room or the sitting room. Let's come. And that is the secret door or the trap door where the selected ladies were taken up to the governor's bedroom. Now we see something right here. Then this is where the governor will stand when it comes to the pointing or the selecting of the ladies from the down there. And then these are the governor's kitchen, the kitchen for the governor. We have one right here and that of the other side here. Now we saw the church of the Portuguese down there. This side is that of the Dutch Reformed Church. An amazing thing is that beneath the church was where the slaves were held down, precisely the women, when we're talking about the history of the slave trade. Right, so the building that we have out there, the white building that we have out there, it happens to be the vantage point where the natives helped the Dutch to fight against the Portuguese. So when the Dutch took over the place, to fortify the castle, they built that fort, that's a Saint Catsle fort, for their soldiers right there to protect the castle. And these are the weapons. These are all the weapons that they use for fighting if there were any attack. Let's see something right here. the square diagram that we have down there, that is the compass. It also serves as a sundial. You put a stick in the middle, and then you put a turn that. And then where we have the coconut plant, there was water inside. So water being inside, the drum which you had there was raised up as a way of protecting the castle in the evening. Now, this point here, as we've gone through the history of the castle, looking at all the dungeons aspects, we're looking at the point of slave trade still going on in a different way. So the point is that the more we educate ourselves, the more we can make the world a better place. So we do encourage you out there, come to Elmina Castle, Cape Coast Castle, that is the Christian Board Castle. Go to the situation, then together we can make the world a better place. This is the time, and this happens to be the right time to educate ourselves and to unite Africa to make it a nation of its own as a whole. This is the time, and this is the right time. This will be the time for me to say goodbye and also to end the talk with you.